And welcome back, everybody, to the Podcaster Nation. That's right. I said welcome back because I know you were just listening to our stuff and you loved it so much that you came back for more. I don't blame you. I'd come back for more too. And it was a good decision because we have more for you. I have an absolutely brilliant lady I'm interviewing today, folks. She is going to just wow you with all kinds of stuff. I got 100 questions for her. She's got a book, she's got a podcast. I can't wait to talk to her. It's going to be really amazing. Folks, this is the podcast that is about podcasters. It's for podcasters and it's done by podcasters. And yes, my guest is a podcaster. You guys always crack that code. You're brilliant. Folks, this is the place that we come together to support each other and lift each other up. And this is the place where the rising tide raises all ships. So let's get sailing and introduce our guest today. Please welcome, let me make sure I get all this right. I'm going to get my notes. All right. Entrepreneur, professional speaker, author of the book More Than a Few Written Words, a collection of essays for business owners, and host of the More Than a Few Words podcast, Lorraine Ball. Lorraine, how you doing today?
I'm great, Rory. Thank you so much for inviting me to hang out with you today.
Well, I appreciate you coming. Thank you so much and for showing up the way you have. You came on today with, I mean, you were full of energy and smiling and the whole bit. And I love that. I mean, we can't go wrong when we start like that, can we?
You can't. And it's kind of how I start my days. So, yeah, this
Love
is,
it.
uh, on the bus stop as a kid, for those early morning bus stops, I was the cheerful one. And sometimes my friends liked it and sometimes they didn't, but this was always who I was.
Well, that brings us to a great place to start. We have a lot to talk about, of course, but tell all our listeners, who is Lorraine Ball? What are you about and what brings you here today?
Gosh. It's so interesting when people ask you to talk about sort of what you've done. You have to pick and choose and figure out where do I start? Because I'm not going to start with me. I was a precocious 5-year-old. Yeah. Okay. Um, I am originally from New York, and I think that colors my perspective on the world. I have actually lived outside of New York way longer than I ever lived in New York. But if people ask me where I'm from, I'm still from New York. Um, I love the energy of the city. I've always loved um, having people around. I am an extrovert's extrovert. I get my energy in a room full of people. Um, Educated in New York, big believer in the public school system, graduate of Queens College, which is in the New York City school system. I was going to be a teacher. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You get that look. And so I taught English as a second language overseas for a year, and realized that as rewarding as that was, when you're a teacher, you're in a room full of people and you're all by yourself.
Very
Remember, I
true.
said I was an extrovert's extrovert.
Okay.
And while the children are charming, there was no one to talk to. So that was
Gotcha.
not going to be the lifelong fit. Bounced around through a couple of different jobs until I went back to grad school, and I was going to be an accountant.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so the accountant personality, right?
Not even a little.
Not even a little. No, I mean, I'm really good in math. I'm really good with numbers. I was going to be a math major in college, but there really wasn't a career path back then, um, other than teaching other people math, which again would put me in a room full of people with nobody to talk to. So I thought I would be an accountant. And my professor sat me down and she said, okay, here's the thing. You can do this, but you're going to hate your life. You just don't. I mean, I was acing the courses. She says, but you're not an accountant. Okay, what should
Wow.
I be? Well, you should be a marketer. Marketing? Are you kidding? Those people make that stuff up. I'm looking for the data. And she said, okay. And about a week later, my marketing professor cornered me because I was required to take one marketing class. And I'm pretty sure they had talked because she said, Lorraine, you really are a marketer. Now, unlike what I said to my accounting professor, I couldn't very well tell someone whose life work was marketing that I thought it was nonsense. That would not be polite.
Not a good career move.
Not a good. I was looking for a grade at that point, and not a good grade move either. So I just said, I appreciate that, but I'm really more of a quantitative person. And marketing seems a little soft around the edges. And she said something that has stayed with me my whole life. She says, no, that's where you're wrong. Good marketing is all about the numbers. If you do marketing and you don't pay attention to the numbers, what you end up with is award-winning advertising that doesn't sell product.
That's rough.
That's rough.
Okay.
But it stayed with me, and she was right. And I took another marketing course, and then I took another marketing course. And what I realized, they were both right, is that I view the world through the lens of a marketer. I understand the strategy and the perspective of not just the data, but the perspective of looking at it from a customer's eyes. Who are they? What do they want? And how do you give it to them? And so I switched my major and ended up in marketing. Really loved product marketing, was fascinated about the idea of getting somebody excited about a thing and matching that thing to that person. And my first job, and I have to tell you this and then we'll move quickly on, but my first job out of graduate school, I got a job interview with Lennox and I thought it was the China company. It wasn't.
Okay.
It was the heating and air conditioning company.
Oh my goodness. All right.
And
Yeah, a little different.
and I'm sitting there in my interview blue suit, but and this has always been me. The other three women waiting for their interviews were in blue suit, white shirt, and at the time, everybody was wearing these little red scarfy things tied up in a knot right around their neck. And I had one and I put it on for the interview and I burst out laughing. So there I sat in my blue suit and my bright purple shirt because I couldn't do it. I couldn't. So but I still thought I was dealing with the China company kind of high fashion because it was a very plain office. You didn't really know what you were doing. And I walked in and kind of walked through the entryway, and there was a giant poster of Dave Lennox. I wondered why there was a guy in overalls. Still didn't know. Got in and went, oh. So I have no idea how I got through the first interview. Did do my homework for the second one. There were multiple interviews, including one with their corporate shrink, who later told me that he figured I was either going to be a perfect fit for the engineer I was paired with, or we'd kill each other in the second week. But he also let me read the whole report, and I was like, did they read this? Did they know what they were hiring? And he said, yeah. And I was like, cool. Because then I had permission to be who I was, which was a little out of the box, a little in your face. And that was my reputation. And I loved it. It was fun. Did some, and those are longer stories for another time, but did some really outrageous things that got me noticed, not just in the company, but in the industry. And so Carrier Corporation, who was kind of the big dog at that time, came looking for me. One, I was outrageous. Number two, this is a time when you could count on one finger the number of women, okay, maybe one hand, the number of women that had my experience, that were making waves in what was pretty much a male-oriented and pretty static industry. Turned down the job 3 times in 18 months. And finally, they were just like, okay, what? You got to come meet the people. So I kind of thought back to my first interview and went, okay. I showed up in Indianapolis during race month, which you're from Granger, Indiana.
Yep.
Back in the day, the entire city was black and white. Everybody was in black and white. Everybody was going to the track. Everybody in the company was wearing sneakers because they were going to go to the track with a tour group before or after. I step off the plane in a purple suit, orange shirt, and 4-inch purple heels.
Okay.
Yeah,
Ready to go run around a track for sure.
And this guy is talking to me about the race and the track, and I'm like, and he's like, yeah, and we have 750 seats, and we go to the race. We get up at 6 a.m. There's a police escort for the buses, and I'm looking at him going, dude, do you think this is going to make me want this job? But it gave me permission to walk into that conversation and say, look, this is who I am. This is who you're hiring. Do you really want this? Because I'm never going to be your button down, sit in a corner, quiet type. I'm good at what I do and I'm confident in that, but this is who I am. So I did take the job, and a couple of my friends later told me, maybe 6 months later after I was there a while, that they talked about that outfit for 3 days. they couldn't. But it gave me permission that anytime I would walk into my boss's office and go, okay, I've got this crazy idea, but I think this is going to work. And he'd look at me and I'm like, you hired the chick in the purple suit. What did you expect? And, that worked for a long time. Unfortunately, everybody gets promoted and everybody gets moved around. And the people that replaced the people who hired me didn't quite get it. And so 8 years later, I went to work for an insurance company for 2 years. Oh, the longest 2 years of my life. Did some creative things, rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Got a lot of respect from the people that worked for me, because that was always my thing, was I didn't really care as much about upper management. Maybe I should have cared more. But I cared about my team, my people. Were we doing good? Were we doing good work? And I learned how to run an agency because I was literally running a marketing company inside an insurance company. I had a team of 48 people, which is ridiculous for any company to have that big, an internal agency. And we still hired our big TV advertising production out.
Wow.
So crazy, just crazy, which is why the company went bankrupt. But after about 2 years of that, I was like, okay, this is not working. I can see how we could fix things, and we're not listening. The people are not listening. I could do this on my own. And so I stepped out on my own, started as a traditional agency. Along came social media and along came digital. And I always hired interns who'd walk in and say, hey, I think this Facebook thing, this could be a good thing for us. All right, well, it's not going to cost us much. Let's give it a shot. This whole, you blog personally, but I think we could blog for clients. Really? You think people would pay? Okay, let's give it a shot. And eventually we became a digital agency. And I'm going to get to the podcast in just a minute, but I want to do a quick detour. All along the way, I'm married. I have 2 kids. I've had dogs and cats along the way. I still love teaching, and I occasionally would teach a class here and there at a local university. And my other passion is photography. And I take pictures. LorraineBall.com. It's my name. You can find the website and you'll see some pretty pictures. Occasionally now I show them in art galleries, and somebody even bought one of my pictures recently. I was very excited. But I take pictures for me and it's fun. So that's
Nice.
the other side of me. The digital agency I ran for 19 years. It was a lot of fun. The business was always about helping small businesses become big businesses. It was always about marketing in plain English and explaining things because that's the teacher part of me. And one day, my intern walked into my office and he said, Lorraine, you like to talk. Yeah, kind of do. You should have a podcast. Okay, what's a podcast? And that's really where the podcasting adventure begins. And so I can kind of put a pin in it there if you want. And we can either talk more about my past or more about, switch over to podcasting. You're the host, ask the question.
I mean, wow, that's I knew it was going to be fun interviewing you and talking to you today, but I mean, just wow, I love everything you're just throwing out there. It's amazing. I'm curious, just in terms of the track. When you said you went out and opened an agency, you didn't open an insurance agency. You went into
Uh,
marketing at that point.
oh, yeah, no, I never wanted to see another insurance
Okay.
plan as long as I lived.
You and I feel the same way about insurance. So
Mhm.
it's like that's one of those things you do, and then you go, yeah, I can't do this anymore, and you move on, get out of it. So, yeah, for sure, I feel that pain.
So
Um,
I have to just say this. My
yeah,
husband,
please.
very early in our careers, maybe for 6 months, he sold life insurance because somebody convinced him this was going to be a great career. And
Right.
he figured out 6 months in that it was no fun going to a party and walking up to someone and saying, "Hey, do you know you're going to die?"
Right. I did the same thing, and I'm feeling
Mhm,
your husband's pain. I
mhm.
sold life insurance, and nobody, no matter how much you
N-
need it, nobody wants to talk about that.
Nobody wants to talk to you.
Mm,
No,
not at
no,
all.
they don't. They don't.
No,
Mm-mm.
it's yeah, it's awful. Um, wow. Okay, awesome. Now, is your husband an Indiana guy? I'm just curious.
No, he's a Texan.
Oh my goodness.
Oh
Wow.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We were down in Texas. That's where I was working for Lennox Industries. We moved down there. When we got married, we looked at New York City and we looked at Dallas, Texas. And as much as I loved New York, for a couple starting out that had literally nothing, we were going to
Mm,
sleep on a mattress on the floor. Um, Dallas was very affordable. There were lots of jobs. It was easy. And so we figured we'd give it a shot. We came up to Indianapolis and I had a 3-year contract and the deal was 3 years I'm out. I'm not staying. Who the heck is going to stay in Indiana? Please.
I know, I know.
I've been here 33 years.
Once you come into Indiana, you never leave. I mean,
The
it's
hooks
just,
get in you.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you, it's such a nice, easy life. You just, you're not bothered by all that stuff. It's like, oh, that's happening in New York. That's not here. That's over
Well,
there.
and even though everything is more expensive everywhere, it is way more affordable. So, my friends who live in New York and they're like, oh, but Broadway. And I'm like, really? How many shows do you see a year? I can afford to come to New York 2, 3 times a year, hang out with my family, and see a show. Do you do that? Well, you know, mm-hmm. And I know I can't fly anywhere direct from Indianapolis. I get that. But with a quick stop in New York, I can be anywhere I want to be in Europe. And I have family on the West Coast, so I can do that too. Quick overnight.
Yep.
You never want to let the airlines have a chance to screw up your vacation. So
Okay.
I fly to New York and then I fly international. I don't have to worry about layovers in New York. I fly out to the West Coast. I stay overnight and then I go west because I'm on vacation and I don't want the stress.
Good. Words of wisdom. I love that. Okay. That's perfect. All right. So, all right. Great. You're running your own business though, and you're still doing this. Obviously. I mean, this is
Yeah.
your own company that you're running.
So I ran it for 19 years and somebody came along and said, I'd really like to buy your company. I was like, really? Okay, let's talk about that. And it was after COVID. So we had come through COVID. We were intact.
Mm,
We had good clients. We were still doing really well. And I thought about it and I said, this could be the time. I had spun off the podcast, my online training, and my intellectual property, all of my resources, I had actually spun them off to a separate company. And I had done that like 2 years earlier. So when I started talking about selling the agency, there was a clear line. You can have the clients, you can have the resources for the clients. You don't get my podcast.
Mm.
You don't get the however many, it's 15 years now. So that'd be like 10, 11 years of this podcast. You don't get to have that. And that worked well. I spun it off. And for the last few years, I've been teaching a little bit at a local university, and I have a few consulting clients, and I've had time to write one or put together one book collection, and I'm working on another one, and travel, because that's my other passion. It gives
Really?
me it gives me a great source for new photos.
I was just going to say, all right, in addition to the photos,
Mm.
where does the photos passion come from? Is that from when you were younger? I mean, is it something you were exposed to then, or
Uh, I got cheap cameras when I was young, and somebody, not young, I was about 20. I would have been 21, and somebody gave me their old camera, and it was a better camera. It was a real camera. It wasn't a Kodak Instamatic, and I would take photos, and I liked it. I really enjoyed it, but um, it was an expensive hobby.
Hmm.
The
Yeah,
cameras, the film, and so I got away from it for a while, and then in '09, '08, somewhere around there, somebody gave me their old digital camera. Again, those were expensive back in the day, and
right.
this camera actually had a floppy disk. That's how big and heavy it was. Now we have the little SD cards, and I started taking pictures again, and realized the constraints of, well, I can only take one photo because I don't have enough film. I have enough disk space. I can take cameras, and loved that, and have loved it. And then I've got an iPhone, and I have a camera. I update the camera, I update the iPhone, and I realized the cameras on the iPhone are better and better and better. They don't do, if I want to take really wide photos, they don't work as well. You really need but for just about everything else, I've taken a bunch of digital photography courses. I have a friend of mine who's a fabulous professional photographer, and he only shoots digital, and he's my hero. He only shoots iPhone, and he teaches classes, and it's just, I love it. And mostly for me. I take other art classes, and it's for me. Um, but it's really cool when you blow them up and you put them in a gallery, and people are like, oh my God, that is a really great photo. Thank you.
That's got to feel
I have
good.
some of those in my house. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's got to feel good. I love that. So you've sold at this point in your life, you've sold your agency.
Mm-hmm.
So that part's gone. You still have the podcast. You kept that.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it you do now today?
Oh, I still do. I still have some consulting clients, and I love that, because when you have the agency, I was strategy. That's always my piece. I would do the strategy, I would do the metrics, I'd come up with the ideas, and then I had this team. I had my writers, I had my web designer, and I'd be like, okay, guys, take it from here. Here's the plan.
Right.
Here's the customer. Here's what we're looking for. Go make it happen. And I could do that, but at the end of the day, the customer still came back to me and said, well, this isn't exactly what we wanted. This isn't what we talked about. Okay, well, we can fix it. Let's do this. Let's do that. Um, Now I just do consulting. I just tell people what they need to do, and I will hook them up with agencies if they want. I'll give them plans for their internal teams if they're going to do it internally. But I'm not dealing with, as an agency owner, you're always dealt with, well, that's great. You guys have been doing a bang up job for 2 years. I hired someone fresh out of college who's going to take over our marketing. And you're like, okay, here you go. We'll see you in a
Right.
year.
Right. Good
Um,
luck with that. Yeah.
Good luck with that. As a consultant, number one, I give you the plan. How you execute it is up to you. But when you say that to me as a consultant, I can go, are you nuts? If you really want to do that, fine. But here's why that's a dumb idea. And I can say that
Hmm.
because I got no skin in the game.
Yeah.
I'm not being paid. And that's the thing with a lot of people who are like, hey, we're going to audit your marketing. You want to know, well, do they have a web business or a content business or an SEO business? Because I can tell you when they audit your marketing, if they have a web business, you need a new website. Whether you need it or not, well, the outcome of the report is you're going to need a new website.
It's just going to be in there. I got you.
When you're a content house, and but I don't have that. I don't have, and when I was running the agency and I would do the audits and I would do them legitimately, I still had to sell at the end of the day. And so there was always that offer coming on, that second step. I don't have to do that anymore. You're paying me to look at what you're doing, give you some advice, share what's between my left and right ear. And that's really all it is.
So you get to do the part that you've always liked. Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
I love
I,
it.
I get to talk to people
Mhm.
with the podcast and with the consulting. I get to do strategy. And I have been teaching at Butler University. I was teaching in the Lacey School of Business, one course a semester, marketing. I think I'm going to take off for a little bit, and I may go back in the spring. But I just had some things pop up that makes it more challenging for me to manage the schedule, and I don't like teaching virtually to the students.
Hmm. So teaching never left you. You got back into it.
Oh, I teaching never left. That was that in the pot. Well, that was my most effective marketing. I would run a public seminar. If I could put six butts in seats, one customer came out.
Wow. That's a great return.
Mm-hmm. And then everybody started doing it. And then I had to put more people in seats. And then I started doing some online stuff. I do webinars. It's not my favorite medium, but I do them. But then there was COVID and everybody does webinars. Most of them terrible, but everybody does them.
Right. Now everybody does them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody like discovered Zoom was a thing, because they
Yeah.
were sitting at home. So I understand totally. Oh my gosh. As an old sales dog myself, I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
love your journey because I get it. Like everything you're saying at each point, I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Got it. Life insurance makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. Move on. Got it. Totally love it. The podcast seems to be a little bit of an anomaly in this journey. I mean, you have a ton of episodes. I mean, it's not like you have 50 episodes or something. It's 1,000 something.
11, 1150. I think I'm editing 1160 this week.
Okay, I knew it was over 11. I'm like,
Mhm.
that's a massive amount of episodes. I mean, for one person, I mean, for one podcast. That's not even like, 20 podcasts or 30 podcasts all put together. That's one podcast. That's amazing. So congratulations on that. But what an unbelievable thing to have seen when I opened that up and started listening, and I was blown away. But how do you use the podcast today? Like, what's the use of it with the new business that you have? How do you utilize that? You are laughing right now. Oh my gosh. Okay, I can't wait to hear this.
So yeah, we have time for another story
Of
because
course
because
we
this
do. We
this
have all
this
kinds
is
of
where
time.
we are.
Go
All
ahead.
right. So to answer that question, you have to go back to the beginning. My apologies, 1100 episodes ago.
That's
I'm
okay.
not going to go through all 1100 episodes, but we do have to go back to the beginning.
Got it. All right.
Okay.
Here we go.
Um, I Neil came into my office. He said, Lorraine, you need a podcast. I mentioned, I don't know what a podcast is, but yeah, let's give it a shot. how do we do this? Oh, you can record them on your iPhone. Really? He says, yeah, you can just kind of record these little interviews. And so without a plan, without a strategy, without any idea how this was going to fit into anything else that I did, I was like, well, our targets are small business, and we have a lot of friends. I'm a good networker. When people come by and visit, like, you know, my referral partners and stuff, I can interview them, and they'll be short interviews, and that'll be the podcast. And so right from episode number 1, it was More Than a Few Words, a marketing conversation for business owners. It might have been small business owners at that time, but it was always business owners. And the idea was that it would help establish me as a resource. It would help establish some of my marketing expertise, because that would come through the episodes, and it would generate business for the agency. That was the theory. Okay. Never did it because I thought it was going to make money. I was going to have sponsors. None of that. It was a marketing tool for the agency. And the funny thing was, it never drove any business. Never. How many times do I have to underline an exclamation? Never. But I liked it. It was fun. And it was a great way to connect in the local community. It was fun. I could shine a light on people who were doing good work. It helped me build relationships. I got introduced to people outside of the area, and it was fun. And so when I sold the business, and by then I was using Podmatch and other sources, and I get to talk to people all over the world, and I love it, and I learn stuff, and I just kept doing it. And I wasn't quite sure how it fit, but I did consulting for small business owners, so I just kept that. This spring, 15 years into this podcast, let's get this right. I wake up one morning and I'm like, this podcast isn't for business owners. And honestly, it never was. Because if you listen to the conversations, if you listen to what I'm really talking about and the things that I'm excited about, it's marketing. This show is way too geeky for any business owner. The audience for this show is my peers. It's other marketers. And maybe it's marketers who are coming up, much like you do this podcast. And the experienced marketer is going to listen and go, yeah, that's kind of fun. But the real audience are the people that are on the early phases who are like, how do I get there? Right. That's my show for marketers. So I am going through a rebranding. More Than a Few Words is a marketing conversation. You know how many times I have to re-record or edit out for business owners out of the opening as I'm doing the interviews? Because after 15 years of saying that, it just comes off my tongue.
Right.
But that's not who this show is for. And I would hope that any other podcaster out there would maybe have that epiphany a little sooner. That might help. It wouldn't change any of the conversations I have. It wouldn't have changed. It might have helped me clarify and maybe build more of an audience, because we had a huge audience back in the day. We did the shows live, and we used Blog Talk Radio, which sadly, we moved off that platform, but I was still sad to see them shut down this year.
Yeah.
But we used Blog Talk Radio, and we did a live call-in show. Oh my God, was that stupid? But what we also did was we would live tweet, because Twitter was that was the heyday of Twitter. That was Twitter. We would live tweet, and we would be talking with our audience, and Allison, eventually my co-host, would be, tweeting and responding. And sometimes she'd show me the feed, and I'd be like, oh my God, look what, this person just said. We were Facebook Living a decade before Facebook Live ever, or half a decade before Facebook ever figured out that live was a thing. But that audience, my roofers, my electricians, my little shopkeepers, they were not on Twitter. They were not listening to this. It was my peers.
Interesting.
So that's,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So when you ask the question, I'm kind of rebranding and figuring that out.
I'm so glad I asked you that question because wow, with the answer. Talk about hitting a nerve. I just loved it.
I'm, I'm getting ready to record. You may have noticed I have some episodes called "What Went Wrong," and I'm really having fun with those, where I ask marketers who are very successful, okay, tell me about something you did that was stupid or wasn't a good idea or just blew up in your face. And when I first started the series, my husband said, "Well, if it doesn't work, you can always do your last episode as what went wrong with what went wrong." But
True.
but it's been really fun. And so instead, I'm going to do what went wrong with more than a few words, and I'm going to essentially tell this story because it's funny, it's painful, but it is a really good lesson in figuring out, does your passion line up with what it is you're trying to sell?
Hmm. Now, I heard you mention that on your podcast. You have that intro piece. They're talking about the new thing coming, and I'm like, this is going to be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's going to take a little bit of time to get some people's stories out, and you've got a very unique um, way that you do your podcast. When I first saw it, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm looking here and I'm like, all right, what am I going to listen to? Because I want to find out about Lorraine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go and I usually try and pick out a long one, maybe a couple short ones, and just get a feel for who I'm talking to. And they're all short, and I'm going, wait a minute. So I'm like, well, let's just see what this is. And in one of them, it said it's an interview, and I'm like, nah, no, it's not an interview. It's 10 minutes long. No way. So I click on it, and oh my gosh, it's an actual interview with this guy talking about SEO, and I actually got something from it. And no kidding, it's 10 minutes. And you're
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, gotta go. And this dude's like, wow, that was quick.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, bye. That's it. But it was great. So
Well,
what made you start with that kind of thing? Because it's unique.
so the original episodes were way back. They were 30 minutes because when we first started podcasting, the way it was explained to me is, well, Lorraine, it's just internet radio.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. And it
Kind of how we
really
started.
was.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's how it started. And so I felt constrained by the same constraints that you had with radio. You had 30-minute programs. That was a thing.
Hmm.
And then I discovered that not everybody can hold up their end of a conversation for 30 minutes. You're interviewing podcasters. We can talk.
Yep.
Try
Hmm.
interviewing an SEO expert for
Yeah.
30 minutes and see if it doesn't make your eyes bleed and your heart hurt.
I'm feeling pain. I've had a few folks where it's been like, okay, can we get to 15 minutes? Come with
Mm-hmm.
me. I
Yep.
need more than yes or no. Give me something.
Something.
Just anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So we started going where the episodes went. I still wanted to keep it under 30 minutes, but went with where the episodes went. And the more I did that, the more I tightened up the format. Um, I uh, I'm an old Toastmaster, so the 1 minute presentation is not does not scare me. And I am always reminded of the saying, I was going to write you a short note, but I didn't have time, so I wrote you a long letter instead. Because in order to do that short note, you really got to focus. You really got to know what you want to ask and really. And the other thing was, and even for my real audience, but I thought for my small business audience, they don't have 30 minutes. They're not going to sit down and listen to a podcast. But if they have 10 minutes between meetings, if they're in their car, I also started paying attention to my listener behavior. Podcasts that run an hour, I almost never get through. I listen to a piece of it, I go away, I forget about it, I listen to something else. So the short form just sort of evolved naturally. And I'm laughing because you're calling my 10-minute episodes short. There was a thing for a little while. Alexa, everybody was rushing to do the daily updates on Alexa. You had to do like a quick update every
Hmm.
day.
Hmm.
And I was doing, I don't know, maybe I did 30 days of this nonsense. 1 minute podcast, just a quick marketing tip. And
Right.
what I was doing is I was taking my blog posts and I'd read them a couple of times, get rid of all the unnecessary words, and I could get it in a minute. So my Sunday morning shows until January, my Sunday morning shows were 1 minute and my weekly shows were 10. So I had long and short episodes. It's just not what you think of as a long and short episode. Um, I replaced the short episodes with what went wrong. And then again, I started looking at my schedule. I was releasing 3 episodes a week. And I had enough content. I had people lining up to be on the show. I certainly had the time, but I wasn't giving each episode its time in the sun. It wasn't at the top of the list long enough to really get that audience. And so, I don't know, maybe April of this year, right before my epiphany, I had another epiphany that if I just released one a week, my overall downloads have not changed. My show numbers have not suffered because I'm releasing fewer episodes. Um, I'm sharing old episodes more often on social media and reintroducing them. And the episodes that are at the top of the stack are getting more plays. And I'm like, okay, this was a good idea.
Nice.
And to feed my need for constant exposure, now I do reels and I can do a reel every day because one 10-minute episode, if I do it right, there's 3 to 4 reels.
Right. Building your own content as you go.
Mhm.
That's perfect. I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, I certainly didn't mean to offend you when I called it
No,
short.
and you didn't. You didn't.
So I thought that, you just do some things that are unique to how the average podcaster does it. And I
Yeah.
love that. I mean, that's what it's all about. Um, Also, publishing on Sunday
Mhm.
is something that I don't think anybody ever does. I just started putting this into place for me for this coming week. And I'm
Mhm.
sitting there talking about how, I've never done this. I've never seen anybody do it. I look you up. I'm doing research on you and I'm like, she beat me. You know what? I thought I was in front and she's coming on my show in a couple days and she beat me. What made you say, I'm going to come out on a Sunday?
So originally, remember I said that I was, I've played with Tuesdays and Wednesdays, blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. And my longer episodes
Right.
were on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And I had all of this content that I had created for that Alexa daily broadcast called Just a Few Words, because um, and I started publishing it and going, that's a nice Sunday morning snack. And so I started doing it on Sundays and I realized I get I was getting as many listens on that. I was getting as much engagement. And then I launched when I wanted to drop in the what went wrong. And initially I thought, I have to set it apart. And now I just alternate and like you'll end up on an episode that's a what went wrong or a straight interview, as you go through the feed. Um, I was doing those on Sundays. And then when I stepped back, I was like, it's not as cluttered, it's not as crowded. And I also think that there's an audience that has time on Sunday morning to have a cup of coffee and listen to a podcast or two.
Interesting. That
Yeah.
was
And
exactly what I was thinking. I was like, nothing else is out there. So
mm-mm.
why not? But you beat me. All right.
I have been on the bleeding edge of a lot of things. And that might be a whole second episode of what went wrong in my career is I was on the bleeding edge and didn't realize it and maybe backed up or
There's so much about you that's so subtle. It's
Oh,
not the cutting edge. It's the bleeding edge. And I mean, there's these little things through this whole interview where it's like, just little pops. I love it. That's the person that they were hiring with the purple and orange suit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
I love the fact that you use the word subtle and me in the same sentence.
I thought it was a stretch. I mean, I was reaching, but so, all right. So let me bother you for a second about the book. Okay.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, I know we're all talking about podcasting and stuff, but what is different about the book that you put out as opposed to the podcast?
So really nothing. I mean, really nothing. Um, the idea was I had I've had all of these great guests, and somebody invited me. I'd been on their show, and they invited me to be a part of their book collection. And these book collections are a thing. You get lots of authors that do this, and you pay to be on the book. And I was like, that's crazy. Why would I pay you to write the article and be? And I thought, no, I can do that. So I and the first edition is a small edition, but I went to people that I thought had done good interviews. I knew they were writers, so I didn't. I struggled trying to get an SEO story in there because that data and language they're two different things. Um, but I reached out to a lot of my former guests. I said, "Hey, would you like to do this? Um, I'm going to publish the book. If you need a starting point, I'll send you the transcript of our conversation to kind of jumpstart your thinking, or you can write a totally different article." When it was finished, it's very simple. I did it in uh, originally in Word, and then I used the Kindle Direct Publishing tool. But what I did with it is I created marketing graphics. So there were 18 people who ultimately said yes, they would play. And so I would do artwork with maybe 5 pictures. And then I would do a graphic just for that individual person. And I sent and said, hey, thank you for being a part of the book. Here's your featured images. Share these on social. Here's a link to get the book. By the way, there's a copy of the book on its way to you. And I got so much exposure for the book, but it was really for the podcast. And it circled back. And I went back and I interviewed, I had each of those people come back and be a guest a second time. So in the episode, I could promote the book. And with the book, I could promote their episode. So just like my individual episodes are about each of my guests, the book was really about my authors. And
Mhm.
then I went one step further, and this was really fun. I created a spreadsheet and I said, hey guys, you're all awesome. Many of you have podcasts. You're on this list because I thought you were a good guest and I think you should get to know each other. And there have been so many episodes over the last few years where different people who were featured in the book were on each other's shows, have collaborated. I had 2 people from Australia that got together in person. Like a matchmaker.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I
So
like that.
I'm gonna do another one for the What Went Wrong series. I think
Nice.
that's really gonna hook. And I think that really will speak directly to the people that really are, oh, I don't know, my audience.
People who actually are your audience. Exactly
People who
right.
actually are my audience.
I absolutely love it. Okay, awesome. I wanted to make sure we plugged the book, and got a little clarification out there on that too. It looked very interesting when I was checking it out on Amazon. So it is there. Now, you also, the website is morethanafewwords.com, right?
Yes.
Okay. So for everything you have going on, go to the website. Is that right?
Absolutely. The book, the episodes. I even have some training resources held over from my old training business. You might find some worksheets and workbooks there that'll be fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, given everything you've given me so far, I really can't wait to ask this corny little question because I have no idea what kind of answer I'm going to get, to be completely honest. But this is my corny question I like to ask everybody. What is it about, doing your podcast that you love the most? And what is it about doing your podcast that you just absolutely dislike, would love to throw out the window and never see again the most?
Ooh, so the love hate changes on different days. Um,
That's
uh,
fair. Okay.
but I think if I'm honest, the conversations themselves more than anything else. Let's refer to section one of this podcast, the extrovert's extrovert. I I really get off on getting to know people, and I know that it feels like, how do you get to know them in 10 minutes? Well, we have a little time before. But if you ask the right questions, you can learn a lot about people in a very short period of time. And my favorite guests I invite back. So that's the other thing. So I think the conversation is my favorite. And even though I earned my living running a digital agency and I know all the shortcuts, oh, I don't mind creating the content. I like editing the videos. I like doing the social media graphics. I have fun with that. The tedium of getting it all posted, and may I and yeah, that's the piece. Um, I was lucky because for the first 11 years of the podcast, I had a team. And so it was just part of everything we did. We treated more than a few words as one of our clients, and somebody edited it, and somebody else, did the social media graphics, and somebody else shared it, and whatever, whatever, whatever. And it all just got done. And I just had to sit in front of a microphone. And there are days that I really want to think about hiring someone just to say, look, all you need to do is go into these folders and just get this crap everywhere.
Yeah. Nice. You're not alone, because
Yeah.
when I ask that question, especially on the hate part, I mean, love varies, and that's awesome. And I love what you said. The hate part, however, I mean, if you did a Family Feud style top five answers on the board,
Social
uh,
media, social media, social
yeah,
media.
I mean, editing is up there, and social media. That's it.
Mhm.
Yeah, depending who you're talking to, one of
Mhm.
those two answers is right there. And so, yeah, I don't blame you at all. Love that answer. Thank you so much. As we kind of, pull this together, I could sit here and talk to you forever. Old sales guy talking to, incredible, brilliant marketing person. It's like, I don't think we'd ever run out of stuff to compare notes on. But, as we kind of move through this, you've been doing the podcast for a minute for sure. And I mean, I'm still blown away. Over 1,100 episodes. It's just amazing to me. But as you look at this, what is, if you can, pull it down, what's your best piece of advice to, podcasters out there who are not quite where you are, which I think is just about everybody out there?
So one of the things that um, this is a mistake I made. I let pod fade get to me, and I kind of took. There was a year where there were only a handful of episodes released. I couldn't figure it out. And the mistake that I made, and this is the advice I would give anyone, is when that happens, go back into your archive and re-release an episode. The networks do it. My favorite podcasts, they all do it. And the truth is, you've got all of this great content that gets buried in there. And um, not a lot of people heard it. Not nearly enough people heard it, if you're honest. And so re release it. If you're in pod fade, if you feel it coming on, I can't do another interview. I can't edit another interview. Don't. Take one of your old interviews, do a new intro. Hi, I'm taking a break this week. Or this was such a good conversation. You need to hear this, and get on with your life and do that to buy you the time to figure out, are you really over the podcast, or did you just need a break?
Wow. I love that you just addressed pod fade. I mean, wow, that's perfect. That's just perfect. I love that advice. People don't even think that way. and they can't figure out, man, I'm doing all this stuff and I'm doing it all the time. And, the grind's getting to me. I mean, they just don't understand pod fade in general. And
Mhm.
what good advice. Thank you so much for throwing that out there. Just amazing. Wow. All right. As we wrap this up, Lorraine, you've been absolutely a delight to talk to
Thank you.
today. I've been enjoyed every minute of this. Folks, go check this out. Morethanafewwords.com. Go check all the stuff out. Get the book. All right. The book here is More Than a Few Written Words, a collection of essays for business owners. You can find that on Amazon. You've heard about the podcast. You've got to check out her format, how she does things. It's powerful. It's a big bang. You're going to love it. All right. And a lot of you guys out there are struggling with what can I do differently? You know what? Listen to this lady's podcast because she's got a lot of ideas wrapped up in what she does. Just follow her example. And the podcast itself is More Than a Few Words, the podcast. You can find it on all platforms. Um, it, Lorraine Ball, thank you so much for everything you brought to us today and coming here and sharing. I am grateful to you, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
This has been so much fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being on. Folks, this has been another fantastic episode of the Podcaster Nation. It's the podcast that's about podcasters, it's for podcasters, and it's done by podcasters. And folks, as we demonstrated again today with everything that this lady brought to the table, this is the podcast where the rising tide truly raises all ships. So keep sailing.